Hello and welcome to Very Small Talk, our first episode of the new sculpting and painting show for miniatures. Today, my name's Adam, thanks for joining us. And today we've got a guest, Jonas of BeQuest Miniatures, and he's going to be showing us how he sculpts using green stuff, and we're going to enjoy learning all about that, as well as seeing his Kickstarter, which is called Shambling Bones. So we're going to go through all of that today. He's going to show us all the stages, how he starts and finishes his sculpts, and we'll even show some of them finished, painted, now that he's gone live on his Kickstarter. And we're just going to have a great time chatting with him about the process. The show aims to help us level up, learn how to sculpt and paint. I'm an amateur, and I've been learning over the last couple of years, and met lots of nice people on Instagram who are very, very talented, and the show will be speaking to lots of my friends, and they're going to teach me and you what they do and how we should be doing it to help us improve our hobby. So thank you so much for joining us, and without further ado, we shall say hello to Jonas. Hello, Jonas.
Yes, yeah. I don't know if I'm visible right now, but I can't see it in overlay. But yeah, hello everyone. My name is Jonas. I'm BeQuest Miniatures, and yeah, I sculpt miniatures out of green stuff, traditional by hand, and yeah, today I get the chance to talk a little bit about the things, how I sculpt, and about the running Kickstarter, the miniatures I made. And yeah, so I'm excited what questions Adam provided or prepared for today, and we will see what's going on with the show. It's the first episode, so I hope everything goes well.
So I'm very thrilled.
Yeah,
Very thrilled to have you on today, Jonas. It's been a bit of a journey for us over the last few months. Been very excited. It's been great to get to know you better. And before we get into the technical elements of sculpting, I'd love to ask, how long have you been sculpting?
yeah, so that's always a question. Sculpting full complete models or miniatures, it's like around something over 1 year, and sculpting smaller parts, repairing miniatures, copying old weapons and shields from miniatures, it's much longer, I guess, or 6-8 years, I don't know, because yeah, that's often the beginning. Like, people start converting or repairing miniatures, and I started with repairing. Started with using Milliput, two-part epoxy. Worked with water, which was a disaster, but somehow I got some reasonable results with it. And later I found out, or I tried to use green stuff, and yeah, green stuff, everything evolves. And yeah, then I started, I watched some streams about sculpting from some famous sculptors like Flew Williams or Tom Mason, and then I thought, yeah, I can try it myself and sculpt something, and yeah, it worked out really good. So,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah, I had a similar introduction to sculpting with Tom Mason's how to. Can't recommend that enough. So look him up. Tom Mason's sculpting YouTube channel is very good for starters. Hopefully, our show will complement that, and all the other wonderful miniature hobbyists that are on YouTube. A great source of information and inspiration as well. So yeah, apologies for the the screen error earlier for the viewers. Still learning how to drive this thing, but hopefully now you can see Jonas correctly. We've also got in the top corner there's a chat function as well. So if any of the viewers would like to ask Jonas a question about sculpting or painting or Kickstarter, then we'll do our best to answer those as well. So yeah, please interact with us. You know, this is a live stream, so if you're watching, please let us know. If you can hear us properly as well, that'd be good. But yeah, great. So first off, you started repairing miniatures, a little bit of kit bashing, and then you moved into the full sculpt. And can you remember your first sculpt? What it felt like?
Yeah, it was the biggest problem for me was it was a dwarf. It was a space dwarf actually. I don't know. Maybe I can show him. The first one here. Got my greens here. Maybe we can try to show it. See if the camera can focus on it. It was a squat space dwarf. Focusing.
Maybe a bit further back. No.
Okay, you can imagine that a dwarf with a gun.
We can definitely see that. Yep.
And yeah, the problem I had was building proper armatures. Bending wire was really hard for me. The hardest part was bending the under constructor, the armature, the so-called one, and the sculpting part was then much more easier. But it was good to start with a dwarf because the proportions aren't so important. They are small, they have short legs, short arms, they have big heads, and this worked out really fine. So the result wasn't bad. It was good enough, and then did some more of those, and yeah, then I.
So you mentioned armature there. So for the viewers that might not know what an armature is, would you be able to show us an armature?
I can wait a little second. I can show something here. What I find? Yeah, find my box with armatures. So nowadays I do them much different. I solder my armatures and use copper wire. In the beginning, I used paper clips and bended them, and you find enough tutorials on the internet, but it was always a pain for me. And yeah, I don't know if I can show it like this. Yeah, you can see it. This is armature made out of copper wire, and the body is soldered, and yeah.
Okay, so
Bended with legs, arms, and head. And the arms are very long here. That's a reason because I use them for building weapons. So when I make fantasy miniatures, I use the long arms to integrate or to have a wire for the blade, for the axe, or for the weapon. And so I don't have to drill a hole and put it, glue it in. I can.
That's interesting.
Put
So
it into the putty.
we have another slide here then with your skeletons. So just talk us through that. If you could.
You see that in the beginning I learned soldering, and you can see it isn't that perfect, but for an armature it was okay. And the weapons there are made or spin casted out of white metal, and the weapons were also sculpted by me, and I sent it to my caster, and he made them out of metal, so that I have enough weapons to use. And for the skeleton warriors I tried them out and bent it around the wire, which works also. So then afterwards the putty gets around it, and the hands get built up. Yeah, so that's look like they
So
look like
it's
this.
that stage
You
there.
can
So
continuously. So yeah, the first stage also sculpted the legs, the pelvis, the feet, and then afterwards the body, and the head, and then the arms, straight onto the wire for the skeletons, because I wanted to make them thin and not as thick like dwarves. And yeah, that was a little bit challenging, but I think it's good practice to work the green stuff, or the green stuff mix actually with milliput. It's a different or two different epoxies mixed together, and you get the best properties of both, and a little bit more of working time and stickiness.
okay,
Most people don't like the stickiness, but for me it's really important. And yeah,
so
so
the green stuff is an epoxy putty. So can you just
yeah,
show us some?
it's a two-part epoxy, and it's called green stuff because it's blue and yellow, and if you mix blue and yellow, you get green. So yeah, I don't know if I can hear. That's the yellow part of green stuff here, which I have laying around. That's this blue part, and together they mix into green. And for I don't know, I lost it here. And for milliput is a little bit. It's more like it's different colors. I have it here in yellow. It's okay. I can't show it like this in yellow, and it's like you have a two-part gray and the yellow one, and you can get it in white and brown with some different properties and color. But after all, they're all epoxies, and these dry if they are mixed together, and you get a working time around or between 1 hour and 1.5. If you mix them, maybe 2 hours. Well, that's a little bit much. I guess more 1 hour. Yeah, until it's getting really chewy, like chewing gum, and you can't really put any details into it, push into it with your tools, the sculpting tools, which are basically mostly some dental tools for wax carving. Um, yeah, which will be used for sculpting miniatures or epoxy around. Yeah, copper wire.
Okay, that's very interesting. I mean, the tools, pretty much you can use anything that's got a point on it, I guess. But there are some specialist tools that you can buy that.
So yeah, depending on the tools, I think the most important tools you should have is like a very sharp hobby knife. Yeah, very sharp hobby knife with a fresh blade, X-Acto blade, or something like this, to cut in and to on cut out, and to have sharp edges or lines. Then you need also silicon pens with different tips
Okay.
to flatten out the putty, to get very smooth surfaces. And you need tools like the dentist tools I mentioned before, and there are some special tools which you don't get exactly as sculpting tools, but you get it as dentist tools for making uh, wax, carving wax into it. Wait a little bit like this. Can show the tips here. Okay, not that easy. I try to focus here a little bit higher. Yeah, they have different names, different tips, like sharp edges or flat edges, which can be used to make different surfaces, and to punch in the putty and give them structure like fur, or texture like or making chainmail or stuff like this, or other parts. Also use small embossing needle. It's a very small tool. It has a very fine round metal head, and this is perfect for working the face or making chainmail.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, there are many different tools. There are much more. I have also much more tools around, but these are some of the tools I'm using more often because they're one of my favorite tools. And
Just show the chainmail.
they all have names. Yeah, that's the very
Just
first parts. So you can see on the skeletons here that this chainmail was very simple made, and on the later ones I have a very more complex technique.
mm-hmm.
It's not easy to make chainmail on miniatures actually, and you need to control your breathing. You need to be very concentrated and to punch the little holes straight into the putty. I don't know if you have some of the special characters around. The Crunch
Mm-hmm.
miniature has some more or better technique.
Let's have a look. I have to
Yes, maybe.
apologise. We've had some weather warnings, severe weather warnings here. So if we lose the stream, then you know why. We've lost our internet. But let's have a look here. So just scrolling through. So we've got Smasher.
Yeah, or Smasher is, or here, when you crunch rattle bones, when you zoom in there, you can see that the holes are much more,
Yeah.
the straight line, and there's still not there is better ways for doing this, but you can see how much more there are.
Yeah, I think it's
in a
very
row.
effective.
But even the simplest version looks good on a miniature in metal and painted. Yeah, it works out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that huge difference. On a green, it's much more visible, but when you paint them up, it's not that bad. And old miniatures made it like in the first miniature which you showed before. They made it very simple. And many sculptures nowadays make it also like this. And I found out making perfect chainmail is really something challenging while sculpting. It's not that easy like it looks. It's really not that easy. And I'm still working out on better techniques for better chainmail.
One of the things I noticed is the colour of the miniatures. So at this photo here, they've set.
Mm.
And that was something else I noticed when I first started using green stuff. Was it cured? I wasn't I wasn't too sure about that, and it gets harder to work the longer it's been melded together as an epoxy. There's a chemical reaction with the green stuff, which ultimately, after several hours, maybe 6 hours, if you've mixed it with milliput, you're slightly delaying the curing process, and it gets harder and harder to sculpt. But then, when I spoke to you before, you said actually you can use that change in state for different stages.
Yeah.
So maybe you could talk to us about that.
You have to let the putty a little bit sit if you trying to punch out details. Then it's good when it's get a little bit cured. Not too much, but it has to stay in form. When you try to bring something onto the straight wire, you should use very fresh epoxy because you have more the stickiness. Also, if you want to bring on little details, you should use work fresher or with fresh green stuff or green stuff mix, milli green onto the sculpture. So yeah. It depends on what you want to do. So if you like to make an understructure or try to work straightly to the wire, I would recommend don't wait too long. Just mix it very good so that you don't have any any unmixed parts in the epoxy. That's often a very big mistake beginners make. They don't mix the epoxy good enough, or they use older or yeah, some yeah, epoxies which combined or cured a little bit in the middle because they don't have a gap, and then you get streams in it, and you have problems and have little chunks which you can't really get flattened. So you have to mix it very long, and yeah, maybe 2 minutes or something, and like chewing gum, you have to really make sure that it's really firm and good mixed. And then it depends on what you want to do. If you want to have something very good sticking, you need it fresh. If you want to make details, you have to wait a little bit. Yeah, and it's always, you have a little bit time pressure working with epoxy and green stuff or milliparts, so you have to think about what you want to do, and you have to work in little steps. You can't do anything. You can't build a whole miniature at once. You have to think about which part you want to start. I always start with the feet because I want to have a good grip onto my cork, and they get better stability mostly. And after the feet, I try to mostly I try to make the head, the face, because yeah, that's very important for good looking miniature. So the pose, you need a good pose for the armature, and a good armature to get to bend it in the way you want to have him, and you try to build up the face, a good looking face, because it's the most important parts for miniature. For the skeletons here, I did it like worked out the whole feet, the legs, the pelvis, then I made the torso, and afterwards the head, because I just yeah, thought it would be better to have the vertebra, the spine in the back are visible while I'm sculpting the heads, the skulls. Yeah, so that is more fluently. With other miniatures where I only have a neck, I'm mostly doing the sculpting the head first
That's interesting.
before the toe.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
But it's all my thing. You can really just build it from the top or from the back. Most people don't use armatures with arms. They build the torso without arms and drill holes and glue in wire. That's also a possibility, which you always can do. In the beginning, I made my weapons like this. I drilled holes with a fine drill into the hands, and glued in some wire and built around this armature the weapon. But nowadays, slap them straight on, or in case of the skeletons, I used my mostly my prepared white metal weapons. Yeah.
Okay.
So Adam, are you right now? Are you there, or
Yeah, it's
I
just
think?
having a technical
Oh, okay.
glitch. Yeah, just learning how to drive this OBS. So apologies to that, because I went and had a look at another window to make sure that the live chat was working, and as soon as I did that, that killed your camera, I think. So lessons learnt there, but I guess this is just standard fare for people who are trying to live stream until they know exactly what they're doing. Yeah, so apologies for that. What I was going to ask you about the sculpting process. So obviously, when the green stuff is soft and pliable, it's quite easy to make an impression. But do you ever, when it's set and cured, do you ever go up back and use your sharp knife, your scalpel or whatever, to kind of chip away and carve at the solidified green stuff to sharpen things up?
Yes, mostly for weapons, to get a sword, the blade, to get it sharp. I use I sand and file it, also sometimes for very flat parts or for parts which are not perfect, I cut it a little bit away. In the beginning, I cut often the head or the face away when I didn't like it and made it new. Um, but yeah, I found out in my working flow, it's like now I get it in the time where the party is setting. I get good results. I don't have to work. In most cases, I don't have to work over it, or maybe only a little bit. If you mix green stuff with milliput, you have the possibility to cut something away or sand and file it. If you use green stuff in its pure epoxy way, you don't have this possibility because green stuff is not really good to sand and file. And that's the great possibility of the milligreen, of the mix of both epoxies. You get the best of both worlds, and yeah, you can start working over it if you need to. I know that most professional sculptors, or some of the professional sculptors, they go over a miniature and they sand and file it every step. But yeah, I try to get everything straight done in the short period of working time, so that I have the best results. I guess that's the reason why I'm also very fast in sculpting. Other people who really need weeks or months for one miniature, and yeah, I can
Yeah,
work like this after.
when I started sculpting, I attempted green stuff and found, obviously I'm learning, but found it very difficult with green stuff. And I changed to Fimo polymer clay because the polymer clays don't set until you bake them. So that's something I learned quite early on, and so I haven't really tried with green stuff since the early, first couple of miniatures that I made. But I'm determined, now that I know about the milligreen combo, which just gives you that little bit more time, but also gives you a slightly different texture, because I found green stuff, it's constantly moving ever so slightly, but it's kind of changing state, made it very difficult for me. Whereas Fimo or any of the others, Super Sculpey is one that I'm using as well. Stays where it stays live, and when you're not sure how to sculpt, I found that a great benefit because it wasn't curing. I could come back to it. I could put it up somewhere safe, come back to it, and carry on mangling to my heart's desire, trying to make something reminiscing a miniature. And so it's interesting. I've bought some more green stuff. I've got some milliput. Hopefully it's fresh. I shall combine the two and attempt to make a green stuff, because there's something about the green stuff miniatures that is very special. And in a world now, I mean, I've been in and out of the hobby all of my life, painting miniatures as a kid. But then just recently getting into the sculpting side of it, and when I come back to it, there was 3D printing, there's digital sculpting, there's so much available now, plastic, metal miniatures, kit bashing and stuff like this. But there's still something very magical to me about the green stuff miniatures. There's just like a character about them. And so I'm determined to make that a goal for this year, is to actually do another 28mm miniature in green stuff, or milligreen. I mean, I've got these miniatures of yours up here on the screen because they are fantastic. We'll talk about the old style. They are very, very good, and we'll talk about the Kickstarter in a minute. But it's just when I look at
maybe
sorry,
maybe Adam, you said something interesting there before, yeah, which I didn't mention. In the beginning, really wanted to get the look of the old miniatures. I really wanted to make the sculpts like they were made in the 80s and in the 90s. So I really wanted to get to work with the same tools and with the same material, and that's why it was my first choice to work with green stuff and to stay working with it because yeah, it's the time or the yeah the style of the miniatures. I'm a great collector for oldtimer miniatures, and yeah, since I was a kid, I just love the look, the magical look you said there, and I try to get them also into my miniatures, which I found out. I don't know why, but I think I have it. I I get it in my DNA or something like this, or I've
Totally.
looked at too much old miniatures that I can yeah really capture the look.
I think you've done an
And
amazing job.
yeah, one part also was for me like in the beginning I mentioned it. I worked with water, and many people working with epoxies like green stuff and milliput with water or with spit even. Uh, but for me, the best way is to work with Vaseline, or yeah, you could also use some Nivea cream to get to smooth out the putty and to get your tools less sticky. Also, found out if you're working with high quality tools like from the dentist, the tools are much better than the normal sculpting tools, and you don't have the problem that the putty sticks too much onto your tools. This was also a point which I wanted to mention. So, uh, wor- some sculptors work with water, but I wouldn't uh, I wouldn't recommend everyone who starts or who's the beginner try out to work with Vaseline or something else on Nivea cream because you get, out of my opinion, much better control over the putty.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I use that with the polymer clays as well. I find that that is very helpful. Just helps you
Yeah,
smooth over surfaces and stuff, doesn't it?
and I think that you should try Milligreen because it has maybe much more similarity to the polymer clay, I think, because
Yeah,
it's much more firm than and not less gummy than more sticky than green stuff.
no,
Yeah,
definitely
to describe it.
on the list of things to try this year. Like I say, I've bought all that stuff. It's sitting in my drawer to my right. Definitely going to be going for that. And I have to say, you've definitely caught that old hammer vibe. They're phenomenal miniatures, and we touched on it earlier. So this is your first Kickstarter. Let me see if I can get this browser over. So here we go. We've got the
Yeah, the
the
Kickstarter page.
Kickstarter page is up. If I can just learn how to drive this, I can hopefully. Where is it? Main browser. Interact. Hopefully, we can get this to scroll through. There we go. Wow, it worked. So this Kickstarter is called Shambling Bones, and I remember the excitement, Jonas, when we were getting closer to the launch date, and then I mean, just explain how you were feeling.
Yes, it was very exciting because I never. It's my first Kickstarter. I produced miniatures before, but uh, not in making them available for the whole world. And yeah, it was a big thing, and I really hadn't a big clue about how everything works. So I was a little bit nervous, and I got some help from my mate Mustafa Bekir, who's actually working with me on the Marines we are preparing for this year. and he helped me with some graphics, and he read over the text and the story I wrote, and he gave me some tips and corrected some of my typos, and yeah, this was a big help. And yeah, also my caster Andy from Hagen Miniatures also looked over it and said something to it and gave me some very positive critics. And yeah, and then uh, uh, I started in the end of last month, and yeah, made try to advertise it as much as possible in the social media and before. And afterwards, I found out that this was a good strategy uh, because it is always recommended to get much followers for the project on Kickstarter. So you get many of the followers in the beginning to back your project so that you get funded fast. And this is what happens. It was it went so fast. I was very very overwhelmed. uh, it was 20 minutes after I got live. It went through and get more and more. And at the beginning, it was very big. And yeah, so I was very grateful for all those nice people who jumped in there and yeah,
It was
get
great.
their hands.
Very excited for you. I'm a backer of this Kickstarter. It's my first ever Kickstarter. I kept asking you. I said I don't really know how it works. You explained it to me and stuff like this. But as soon as I saw these minis, I knew that I wanted to own them. And yeah, just fantastic. It's funded, instantly, and it's gone on uh, to I think that's an old one. We're at 48 backers now, and you've got yeah, a huge amount over the pledge total. There was no doubt this was going to be backed. So now you have a commitment, Kickstarter. You've reached your goal easily. You have a commitment to at least 48 backers now. Um, So I think that is a nice segue to the next part of the process. I think so. I'll cut to the photos because get rid of this.
So yeah, the
We
Kickstarter runs till the end of April.
Yeah, you've got 20 days left on
23rd,
that.
in 20 days, yeah. And yeah, it would be awesome if more people join. I think in the end there will be in the last 84 48 hours there will be also some people joining. But yeah, it's my first Kickstarter, so I can't really tell what happens there.
Yeah,
But this yeah goal here is very awesome, and I thank everybody for pledging this and making more miniatures.
that's
I'm
what it's
doing this
about.
for you guys out there.
So
For people who love old miniatures, who love miniatures with character, who love metal miniatures, and yeah, for you guys there, I'm sculpting,
the
and yeah, it's really awesome.
so for some who might not know, the Kickstarter is not for greens. It's not for sculpts of green stuff. It's for metal. So if we have a look at this, we can see the the,
The
another
mold.
another process of this. Now you've turned them in from greens into white metal. So maybe you could talk us through that part.
Yeah, so that's a part that I'm not doing by myself because spin casting is not a very easy process. You have to uh, have certain knowledge about the tools you use and for making the mold, which you see here, the white part is the mold of the miniatures, and it's a silicon rubber, which the miniatures get pressed into it with high pressure and heat, and the caster cuts some ways for the metal from the center, and then there will be white metal or hot metal will be thrown into the middle, the center, and the mold spins in the machine, and the hot metal flows into the mold, and you get this result. If everything goes fine, you will have some nice miniatures, which then get out of the mold and get cut it away from some of the mold lines, and the piece in the middle gets used again. You can reheat the metal easily and reuse it, which is a good part. It's when you use plastic miniatures, or you make something out of your 3D printer, you always have plastic residues and garbage to throw away. And when you're working with metal, you can use it, reheat it, and use it again. So it's also cheaper version of making miniatures, but you also get something metal which has a certain weight and quality. So that's a fine process, and I have a very experienced caster, Andy von Hagen or Hagen Miniatures, is also here in Germany, and he casts miniatures, metal miniatures since the late 80s or early 90s, which you can see here. And that's a really fine thing. So it is also was also a dream for me to do it like this, not to cast them out of resin or something else, because I wanted to stay straight old school, making them like in the 80s or 90s possible, uh, like in the golden age. And so wanted someone who can cast them out of metal, and I was surprised that someone's doing this here actually. So I have cheaper shipping costs and can talk in the same language, or in the
Yeah.
mother language, and it's much easier for me also to learn, because you have to think about certain parts. If you do miniatures like this, you, you can't leave spaces between them. So if they are holding a weapon in front of their body, you can't leave a hole between the arms and the body. You have to sculpt the arms onto the body. You can't leave holes in miniatures, because they will get pressed from the top and from the downside. The mold gets pressed together, and if you have a hole in the middle, like the weapon is far away from the body, you get problems. You don't get a good mold.
That makes sense.
So
But
that's
it's
something you have to learn, and you can cut off the arms, or make the arms separate to solve this problem, to get different positions or different poses. But yeah, that's something to have in mind, and that's also something I learned from casting metal miniatures. And yeah, you can see it. Can you scroll a little bit to the miniatures out of the mold? Yeah, you can see it with the skeleton musician in the top. If you go a little bit up, he has his horn in his hand, and on his elbow there is a little part that's it's knife, and the knife gets glued onto his belt, and the knife has to go away, because it would have been problematic to get casted it this way.
that makes
So
sense to me. Is but
yeah,
it's definitely something that you might not consider when you're sculpting these things. And did you say it was Andy who explained all this to you?
yes, it's always about, and which Andy decides then, and he tries to get the best results. In this case, he could cut it a little bit off with a little part of the scales from the armor, so you can fit it straight into his back. Which is, and afterwards, when the miniature is painted, you don't see any difference. It's really great.
Yeah.
So he's very experienced in doing this, and but I'm getting better at this, and I really like miniatures without gluing something onto it. I really liked it, like in the old days. I gluing too much arms, heads, and stuff like this always. Uh, I don't know. I don't like this.
Yeah, so
I
I mean,
don't,
it's completely different to the plastic mini kits where you've got all of these parts on a sprue, and you have to cut them off,
yeah.
clean them up, and glue them. But there's pros and cons, isn't there? Because obviously with a sprue, you have some artistic license. You can put the arms and certain weapons and stuff in different positions. You've got alternate weapons, and you've got alternate shield options here as well, haven't you? But yeah, I've seen quite a few miniatures with little squares or rectangles cut out of them for another piece to glue into position. But then obviously you don't see that join once the miniature is assembled. But it's a very interesting process, and I guess most people will have seen the plastic miniatures now, with Games Workshop leading the way with that development. But they started off, Citadel started off with white metal. And there's Raoul Parther as well at the time, back in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s. They sort of
Yes.
trailblazed with the metal, what we call old hammer miniatures now, the old classics. So yeah,
Yes, and
yeah,
that's also one part why I started sculpting myself, because Ultima miniatures are now very rare, and the prices are going straight to the roof. Uh, So yeah, you don't get them as much, and they're not made anymore, and it's really a pity. And I thought, yeah, someone has to carry on with this. Someone has to even in these days has to make some traditional hand sculpted metal miniatures.
yeah.
And yeah, so that this was
And
my
I'm
motivation
very
to
glad that you did.
to really, yeah.
Very glad that you did. I actually started sculpting because of that point you made. I looked at the old metal miniatures and saw the value of them and thought I can't actually afford those at the moment. I wonder how they made them, and that's how it started for me. Curiosity, and I think curiosity is a great thing. Um, it drives us forward into exciting new ventures and stuff. And yeah, learning how to sculpt is fun. Learning how to paint as well is fun. It's a very relaxing process. So for the viewers, if you haven't actually started this and you're curious about this hobby, can't can't recommend it enough. It's very relaxing. You'll there's so much to learn, and
Yes, and
that's
that's a good point for you, Adam. uh, because painting is relaxing, and it's good for concentrating, and has some meditation about it. But when I paint, I'm more stressed. I don't know why. Painting or painting more miniatures even stresses me more. And when I sculpt, I have much more relaxing, because sculpting is more relaxing for me. I don't know why. Maybe it's simpler. Maybe it's more creative because you're creating something totally new. I don't know. It's my thing, I guess. But with painting, I'm always struggling a little bit. I can paint mediocre, but yeah, I love to sculpt.
I think you're
Sculpt,
very
I
modest.
recommend everybody who never sculpted before, just try it.
Absolutely. I think you're very modest. Your painting style suits your miniatures perfectly. Let's have a look at them again because they are so good. Um, the finished painted miniatures, if I could just find the pictures. Yeah, look at that. Let's just cut that over. Yep, beg your pardon. Yep, they look great on the
And
table.
there you can see some other miniatures. There are some other old miniatures on the right, and I had even one person asked for the, for the other miniatures, and I said no, not from me. They're
Right.
from really old hammer miniatures. Yeah.
I love what
So
you've done with the
painting more
colours.
colorful.
I really do. I think the
Um,
character of you know the the special characters, the features. So when you've got a green stuff item, unless you're very close up to it, it's hard to see the features. But the painting really brings that out of the miniature, and the different painting styles that that you've employed, the shading and stuff like that. It just really exaggerates the features, and So yeah, I get it. I do get nervous when I paint, and I do get a little bit conscious that I'm applying them in the right way. I find that I find sculpting more relaxing with Fimo than I do green stuff because the clock's not ticking with Fimo, and if I'm making a
Yeah,
mistake, I can wipe it out and just repair that and get it absolutely how I imagined it in my brain. Um,
yeah, you're totally right, Adam. In the beginning, I have to correct myself. In the beginning, it was stressful. Sculpting with pure green stuff was stressful because of the you have a short time span to do something, and if you're not so skilled and you're not really sure what you want to do, it gets really stressful. I remember that I had in the beginning some miniatures I had really a struggle. It was not relaxing. It was stressful. But now with the Milli Green and I guess with some skill I evolved, I made uh, over 40 miniatures in 1 year. I don't know, 50 miniatures. And with this experience, I get more chilled. I get very relaxed, and the more relaxed I am, the better the results, I think. So yeah, it's always practice. But you're right. If you have a short time span, it's mostly it's more stressful in the beginning. Yeah.
Totally, totally. I think that there's when we see it like on Instagram, we're both on Instagram. That's how we met, through Instagram, and there's lots of very cool stuff going on. In the hobby, we often start off a new thing with it's like not false expectations, but an expectation that isn't realistic, and it's just for starting off. It's just do it, just have a play, learn by trial and error. You explained earlier where you used to, the face isn't right, so you shaved it off and put another bit of green stuff on there and got it to where you wanted it. And I think that's the beauty of the hobby, is that if you put paint on wrong, you can take it off and try again. If you've got putty in the wrong place, you can take it off and put another bit on there. And it's it's just, for me anyway, I love learning new stuff. I find it very interesting. It's stimulating. It's exciting to learn new things, and seeing stuff that I used to play with as a kid and trying to replicate that. I find that a very wholesome experience indeed when I can actually make something and someone else might look at it and go, "Do you know what? That's actually quite good. Well done." It's very satisfying. It's a satisfying hobby, and learning from everyone else, on Instagram is a very satisfying experience as well. Met some lovely people, and hopefully some of those will be on the show as well, like yourself, just sharing your tips, what you've learned, your experience. It'll fast track the learning for us, the noobs, and
And
yeah,
that's a good point, Adam, because you're totally right. The thing is, the best part of this whole sculpting is not getting them produced or getting uh, them sold or something like that. It's like getting people to paint the miniatures. So Mustafa Bekir now is painting the skeletons, and I will post them in the next days, I guess, when he's finished. And it's such a good feeling to see someone else uh, painting your miniatures in a different style, in a different way, and having fun with them, putting them on the table. So awesome, and that's the best part of it. And as you said with Instagram, this community is so great. I never thought that I would be here over 1 year ago, where I started there, and everything goes through the roof. And I had so much good feedback, and people always motivating me to keep on
it's very cool.
doing more, and so much positive feedback is really amazing. Also for painting, but yeah, in my case, also for the sculpting part, and it's a really good place. There are other places in the social media where I'm also around, just to get connected with people. But Instagram is for the miniature hobby really a really cool place, I must say, because it's much about a hobby and not about other things like politics or something. The people are very straight to the hobby and their love to them, and that's a really great community.
Couldn't agree
And
more.
maybe we should mention also the indie miniature makers
Hmm.
Discord, where I'm also a part of. It's a little Discord dedicated to sculptures and converter and also painters now, 3D, digital, and traditional. And it's also a good place to share knowledge. There are famous people there, uh, professional people, and people who are starting. And it's also a good place to connect and to start. Yeah, when you want to get into this hobby and want to sculpt your own miniatures, that's a good place to get to this Discord and yeah to ask other people there how you can get things done for tips and tricks
So, could you
for
just repeat the
hints.
name of that Discord channel?
It's indie miniature makers Discord, I guess.
Brilliant.
Or Skype. uh, I don't really know. I have
I,
to look at it.
I,
It's not that easy.
I know what I'll do. I know what I'll do. I'll add that in the description maybe later, so people can find it that way.
Like say it 10 times.
Yeah. Oh, there's
uh,
lots and
oh,
lots
I
of
forgot it. Indie Miniature Makers Collective
brilliant.
Discord. Indie Miniature Makers Collective.
Yeah. Well, I will. I'll add that into
But you
the.
put in the description.
Yeah, I'll add
Yeah,
that into the
good idea.
description as well. Um, yeah. So the Instagram community is very strong. There's lots of other branch offs as well. People, Facebook, Discord. I believe Twitter's, vibrant. But yeah, for me, that has really sort
Yeah.
of amplified the has amplified the enjoyment of the hobby.
Don't
Is
talk about Twitter.
no,
Don't talk about Twitter. Okay.
sorry, sorry.
Let's look at
I
it.
just remembered you had a Twitter account. I don't have one, so yeah. Okay, so we haven't
Oh, there's nice people too, but yeah, the company behind it,
unless I've
the
done
people
something.
behind
Yeah, well, unless I've done something wrong on the live stream setup, we haven't had any messages come in on the chat box. I don't know. Without looking, I'll just have to review that. But that should be working. It might mean that we haven't had any viewers, but it may mean that people are shy. But if there are any viewers who would like to ask any questions, then don't be shy. We won't bite. We will welcome
it.
questions and try to
Yeah,
answer them as well.
yeah, you can write the questions into the comments. Yeah, write us comments. You can ask about sculpting. You can ask about the show. Write comments. Try to participate. Yeah, and hopefully this whole thing will evolve a little bit, and we get to know other artists and other hobbyists, and yeah,
Do you know
we'll
what?
see how we go.
I hope this is actually streaming because it it's I don't know. I've got an error message up on here, but it says excellent connection, so I'm assuming that it's streaming. No viewers are waiting. Um, yeah, I don't know.
But it's okay.
Yeah, if oh, you've gone again, so I shouldn't look off window, should I?
Okay,
Just in case. There you go, you're back. But yeah, apologies for the learner driver experience. What I am doing is recording this on my computer so I can upload it if it hasn't streamed perfectly, or hasn't streamed at all. But that may explain maybe why we haven't had any comments. I don't know. I've done exactly as I've done with my practice streams, so it should be streaming. Yeah. Okay. I think we're just over the hour mark.
Yes,
I'm exhausted, and our first episode, I put a lot of effort into this beforehand, as you have with
it's enough.
sending over photos and stuff like that. So all that's left is to say a very big thank you, Jonas, for joining me on the show and sharing what you're doing. We'll do this and more times, I'm sure, as we go deeper into our friendship and that your work continues you've got another Kickstarter in the making as
Yes.
well, and this one is with Mustafa. But we'll save that for another
Yes.
stream. But if you're already on
Yeah,
Instagram,
it's been a,
if you're already on Instagram, you can follow Jonas's work on there, BeQuest Miniatures. Likewise, he has a YouTube channel where he showed his stages, the process that he goes through, just to give you an idea and a flavour of what's involved. All I like to say is do not be put off by what you don't understand. It is easier than you realise, and that's not to belittle what people are doing, but it's have a go. Get yourself some wire, get yourself some putty or some polymer clay, have a go, some cork, some, I remember using little needles, pins to sculpt. You don't need lots of expensive equipment to sculpt. You just need a desire to do it. So hopefully our live stream today has encouraged you somewhat to have a go. And thank you once again, BeQuest. Jonas from BeQuest. We didn't have a tornado hit us, so I'm assuming the live stream didn't cut out. So that's a result. Yeah, thank you very much, Jonas, and I shall
no problems. Thank you, Adam, for being here.
very
And
welcome.
yeah, thanks to all the viewers. And if you have questions, put it in the comments. And yeah,
Totally.
and I think we will do this again soon. So, Adam,
What I'll do is I'll review the recorded to see what errors I've made. I'm sure I've made some plenty of howlers. Maybe that'll be the outtakes blooper. I think I could put that up on on Instagram or something.
no,
But
it's a good idea.
do you know, it's surprising.
Some circus music.
Yeah, it's surprising how nervous
I
I
see.
got before this stream. I don't know about you, Jonas, but we're just chatting now, which is good. The nerves have kind of dissipated. I'm sure there's some errors with the stream. I can think of one that I'm going to review and see whether that's actually transpired as I imagine it may have done. But hey ho, who knows? Episode 1, we're just starting out. As this goes on, and it will go on, I'm very sure that we will carry on and meet some great people on the stream and learn plenty about the hobby, both painting and sculpting. And yeah, it'll all be all right on the night, as they say. And with
Okay,
that,
so we're
I'm
done.
I'm going to cut to outro. Take care, mate. Good night.
Good night.